Hello there, welcome to Critical Reviews. It's time for Alien Earth, Episode 4. So we start off with Wendy after her collapse. She's lying in a lab. She can't hear anything because her audio has been disabled. Pay attention to this. They can disable the synth's audio as and when required. Boy Cavalier comes in and just acts like a complete prick. He's dismissive to everybody. He's like, get out of here. He says to Curly, go over there and play with some knobs. The adults are talking. The guy's just a tool. He does the same to Kirsch as well. Basically says, look, aren't you supposed to be, experimenting with my creatures? And I've got to say, Timothy Oliphant's expression of quiet loathing and despise is something to behold. So I'll risk getting that brief moment without the overlay just so you can see it. It's great. Timothy Oliphant, as always, is impressing. He really is. So they turn on Wendy's audio and they then start isolating the frequency of the alien language because she's like, I can hear them. So they try to find it. And then Boyd Cavalier gets Wendy to replicate the language. So she's speaking the alien language. Okay, I didn't want there to be an alien language. I really didn't. In the Aliens, the alien queen quite clearly communicates telepathically. She's not vocalizing to the aliens in any way when she gets them to come forward or go back when Ripley threatens with the flamethrower. But okay, whatever, they're rewriting stuff. So Wendy is talking alien. Cavalier's very excited by this. He's like, Curly, can you, to Curly, he doesn't use her name, but he's like, can you do this? And she's like, no. So obviously she's jealous of Wendy because he is going to potentially remain her favourite. And then he gets everybody to leave. He's like, look, all get out. And everybody's like, look, we should get rid of these aliens. They're dangerous. Agent Edmondson's character, who I found out was called Atom Eins, which we'll get to a bit later, says, yeah, send back the aliens. Just send them back to Weyland Yutani. We've got information out of them. We don't need them. And Cavaliers, he says, and wake up with an alien xenomorph in my belly. No thanks. We're going to carry on. So that's the end of that scene. Now, an awful lot happens in this episode, I have to say. Not action-wise, actually, it's quite slow, it drags, but we get some characterization and a lot of talking, which some people are going to like, some people aren't. It's a mixed bag, especially given the way that they do it. But we're in Wendy's room. She's acting like a child, she's got a brother there. Sidney Chandler is very good. Some of the acting is very good in this. And Joe says basically that he tried to visit her when she was ill, but he couldn't. He was on the other side of the planet fighting in a war. We're told that the planet is owned by 5 companies. The own solar system is owned by 5 companies. What's going on with the war? There are no governments. Why is there a war? I kind of need to know more about this war. But no, he was just in a war and he couldn't get to her. So that's more or less the end of that scene. It's just a bit of building between Joe and Wendy, or Marcy, as he thinks of her. And it's quite good, actually. The acting is not the problem here. Slightly goes wandering off. We can see that Kirsch is monitoring him. There's a load more crossfade editing, which is getting pretty obnoxious at this point. And you've got Boyd Cavalier talking over the top, reading Peter Pan. He's reading from the book Peter Pan. It's a little bit pretentious, but I can kind of see what they're going for. Slightly wanders completely out of the compound, away from the buildings and labs and everything like that, and sits in front of a fairly obvious green screen. He's talking to Morrow. Morrow's communicating with him. Morrow says, look, I want you to get an egg. And he's like, we're friends. You need to do what's right. This is reparations. Uses that word, reparations. Says reparations is doing what's right. I see you, series. I see you. Morrow gets slightly his full name out of him and just basically says, yeah, get me an egg, get it back to me and you'll put things right. Slightly goes back to the compound and Kirsch talks to him. We can see that Kirsch is fully aware of what's going on. He's monitoring him. Why Boy Cavalier isn't, why this ultra paranoid, ultra neurotic, blatantly kind of autistic character isn't aware of what's going on is a bit hard to swallow. But yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe Kirsch is manipulating things. And Kirsch speaks to Slightly, and we get the kind of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil monkey backstory. And Kirsch is like, look, what's more important to you, supporting your friends or doing what's right? And Slightly says, supporting my friends. I would stick by my friends. Bit of a weird scene, but we can see, basically what it tells us is that Kirsch is aware of what's going on and Slightly will stick with his friends. It's a bit clumsy compared to some of the other writing we've had. So we can see that Kirsch has got an agenda, and we can see what Slightly's doing. It's basic storytelling, letting us know what's going on. We then cut to a sheep with electrodes on its head, and they introduce the octopus eyeball to it. And the eyeball basically slithers along, it jumps up on the sheep's face, rips out its eye, and puts itself in the eye socket. Dolly is having a bad day. We get a sequence here where Cavalier is fidgeting with a ball. He's always got a ball or an apple or something in his hand, and he bounces the ball down, and Atom Irons catches it without even really looking, in a very kind of synth kind of way. So I think Atom is a synth as well, so we'll get more on that later. And there is slowly some intrigue and some interesting plot development being done, but I suspect it's too late for some people, and it's still being done very clumsily. Cavalier watches the sheep gets taken over, and he's sort of going up to the sheep and he wants to talk to the aliens. That's what he wants. Remember, Cavalier's whole thing is he wants to speak to somebody more intelligent with him, and I get the feeling that he thinks that might be the aliens, if it's not one of the hybrids, which was his original plan. So Arthur takes Sylvia out of reach of all the cameras. We can see there's loads of security cameras all over the compound, because as I say, this Cavalier guy's paranoid. So why there aren't security cameras when they don't need to be because of convenience, I don't know. Shit writing is your answer. Anyway, Arthur takes Sylvia out, and it turns out they're married. I was like, wow, never any idea up until now. But yeah, they're husband and wife. And he said, look, I've got concerns. This isn't right. This isn't science. This isn't what we signed up for. Yeah, all very standard stuff. But you get this really obnoxious chanting over the top of it. This kind of high-pitched sort of like, oh, 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 oh. And it goes on for ages. It's not just a couple of seconds worth. It's minutes worth. It's infuriating. It is so obnoxious. Anyway, while these two are talking, Nibs walks by. Nibs says she's pregnant. Ugh. Okay, whatever. So Sylvia goes off with Nibs and they go and have a chat. And Nibs is all like, oh, I'm pregnant. I can feel it. I know it. And Sylvia's sort of trying to explain the biology behind it. She's like, you can't be pregnant.
I'm not pressing you, Stan. You haven't got a womb. Where's the fetus going to gestate? You're going to keep it in a box?
And basically Nibs gets really pissed off and angry and attacks Sylvia. So Sylvia hits a panic button. Now, we've already seen that you can turn down their audio and whatever at any time. I find it hard to believe there's not a incapacitation switch or something built in, but okay, whatever. So Sylvia's like, look, lock her up. This is bad. Lock her up. Keep her under guard. She doesn't see anybody. So she can see she's been a problem. We are getting a superb demonstration in this episode of why you do not make children robots. We really are. So we then cut to a scene between Atom Eint and Joe, and Joe's like, look, I want to be with Wendy, and Eint is like, no, like you work for us, you do what we say, and we say you don't have access to Wendy. So Joe says, I quit. And Aidan Edmondson is smashing this out of the park. I don't know why we haven't seen him play more straight roles. We're just going to permanently be thinking of him as Vivian and Eddie from The Young Ones and Bottom, respectively.
No, that one there! The extra! He never says anything, he just drinks all day. Look, he's going to buy another drink! He's got his own money. No, no. They fill his pockets full of change, push him into the wool pack, and shout, "Go on, mate, drink as much as you like." And when at closing time, they give him a wage packet. Lucky bastard!
But he's clearly capable of so much more, because the quiet, sinister nature of him in this is something to behold. So he says, Joe, that's fine. Yep, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, you're walking around with one of our lungs in you because we've given you a fake lung to replace the one that we've put the chest burster in. He doesn't say that. But, we've given you a fake lung. We're going to bill you for that. We're going to send you away. We'll also get you off the island immediately. You don't get to stay here. Everything now is classified. It's just a giant fuck you to Joe. And Joe realises he's over a barrel. He's like, all right, yeah, fine. I'll stay. I'll stay. Hoping that he can get to, stay with Wendy. But he's like, look, I will be taking Marcy out of here. And Atom's just like, no, you will never, ever get to take her home. You will never be with her. She's not human. She's property. It's really well done. Some actual sort of intellectual stuff going on here. Joe's like, oh, is she my sister? Is she still human in that body? Is she still my sister? And there's some very surface level stuff that's not getting explored, and I kind of wish it was, but the episode wants to move on, and it's already going a fairly slow pace anyway. There's even lots of lengthy pauses, whether to pad it out or to try and make what's being said hit home. But I'm suspecting that a lot of the audience have abandoned this show at this point. But there is, from my perspective at least, some half-decent characterisation and script being done, if not writing overall. There's still a hell of a lot of plot issues. We then go from there to Wendy and Cavalier talking. And Cavalier's like, did you feel like you were fighting pirates, or did you feel like you were fighting Indians when you were fighting the alien? I have to say, I just feel like Cavalier is the weak point in this. I know they're trying to make him Peter Pan, and it's not working. It's not believable. The structure just isn't there for this trillionaire. I don't know if they're trying to make him a bit like Elon Musk or something like that, but Elon Musk is more together than this guy. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't. You're not sold it. That's the thing. You don't believe it. And the problem with that is, because that is the crux of the episode, that is the defining structure behind everything. That Prodigy is this giant company and he's overseeing it all, and that he's this super smart guy and the trillionaire and all that kind of stuff. Because all that falls apart at the first hurdle, the building that's put on top of that foundation is shaky, to say the least. So a lot of suspense of belief is required, and the show doesn't really do what it needs to do to allow that to happen. But anyway, we find out that, surprise, surprise, Cavalier's got family issues. He's got personal problems. He says, I don't like brothers. I don't like mummies and fathers and mothers and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, this guy is a walking trope. And he's like, look, I think we should get rid of Joe. Wendy says, well, we should send the aliens back. It's wrong keeping them. And Cavalier just goes, no, I think we should get rid of your brother. He's a distraction. None of the others get to have brothers. And Wendy's like, please let him stay. Cavalier says, please, that's hardly an intellectual argument, and he says, that if you help me find out what the aliens are saying, then I'll let Joe stay if he's not a distraction. And again, Sydney Chandler is so good at acting this kind of this 12-year-old, she's like, no, I promise he won't. I promise it'll be fine. You'll see. I swear, pinky swear, and that kind of stuff. It's very well done, I've got to say. No complaints there. Some good acting. We then cut from these two to another two people talking. This is the theme of this episode. It's lots of groups of two people talking. It's welcome to see this stuff, but the structure is the problem. Anyway, moving on to the next scene of two people talking. It's now Tootles. I'm finally getting to know their names 4 episodes in, and Kirsch. And Tootles is basically saying, look, I want to give myself a new name. I'm doing grown-up work here, helping you in the lab. I want to choose myself a new name. I want to be able to, self-identify and that kind of stuff. And Kirsch is like, what name do you want? And Tootles says, Isaac, as in Isaac Newton, scientist, an important scientist. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Fine. I'm fine with this as well. This is okay. It's a little scene. Not much happens. So Kirsch is like, yeah, fine. Okay, that's fine. We'll call you Isaac. And then Isaac walks out of the lab, bumps into Slightly, who is I can see why Morrow picked him, because he's the most impressionable and the most easy to manipulate, but he's also completely fucking useless in every single way. The most childish by some distance. Yeah, nice pick, Morrow. And he makes a half-assed excuse about having to go get the egg. I mean, this is all going to be recorded. There's going to be surveillance cameras and everything like that, and none of this is really thought of. But he fails at the first hurdle and can't get the egg. So he goes back, all the way back, to this horrible green screen in the middle of nowhere, when before this he was just talking in the compound and stuff. And we see here that Kirsch has literally, he hacks into Slightly, or he hacks into him. He hears everything that's going on, but this boy genius has no idea. So Kirsch is listening to everything that's said, and Kirsch says, Slightly says, "Look, I can't get the egg. I don't want to betray my friends." But Morrow has found his mum in the space of, seems like a couple of hours. We have no idea how much time's taking place, because one of the things of modern writing is time and space just don't exist. Everything happens as and when it needs to. People teleport to where they need to be, and everything happens at exactly the same time. So he's found his mum, apparently. She must have been local. Why? Don't know. Scriptwriters don't care. Why should I? And he's basically threatening Slightly. He's like, your brother's going to be home soon. I've got your mum here. So, you're going to do what I want. Otherwise, you're not a very good friend. And, I'm not nice to people who aren't my friend. So he's like, look, if you can't get an egg out, what I need you to do is get a human in there. You get a human in there, something's going to come out of the egg, attach it to them, then it's going to fall off, they're going to fall asleep, and then I need you to bring the human to me. And I'm just like, this is fucking dumb. You're telling me there's no security cameras or anything like that whatsoever on here, that, this plan is going to work. It's so stupid.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So, yeah, Slightly is going to have to get a human and take them in, and you wonder, I wonder who that could be. Well, the show doesn't want there to be any intrigue or anything like that, because it immediately cuts to the children with Joe. Joe's being really nice to the children. He's having fun. He's hanging around them. He's a big brother. He knows what he's doing, and they're enjoying his presence. There's some more exposition about the 5 companies. We get to find out who they actually are. I'm not going to bother reciting them. 2 of them, I think it's Curly and Isaac. I think it's Curly and Isaac, I think, are playing Jenga with like massive bricks to show that obviously they're extra strong. And then Slightly turns up, and Slightly is jealous because Wendy has a brother and he can't have his brothers. So it's like, well, obviously he's going to pick Joe then. But that's not enough. Don't worry anyway. More obnoxious crossfading. We're near the end now. Wendy says, look, I'm going off to the lab. And Joe's like, look, you don't have to if you don't want to. She's like, I want to. Genuinely, I want to go to the lab. We get like a 3 times crossfade. So 3 scenes crossfaded into one with the editing. It's, oh my word. It's Joe in the room examining his massive scar, which is absolutely nowhere near to where he got stabbed. Slightly watching Joe through his window, making it even more obvious, if you didn't realise in the first place, that he's angling to put Joe in the chamber. We still don't know where these eggs have come from, by the way. We have no idea where these eggs have come from. No concept at all. We know we've got an alien creature. Where did the eggs come from? Makes no sense. Anyway, Wendy goes to the lab, and she's singing and talking to the lung sitting in the jar. The lung has not been shriveled. It's not, there's no sign of any damage to it or of it being consumed in any way, but an alien hatches from it anyway. For aliens needed nutrition to hatch. That's why Kane was so hungry after he got face hugged. Fuck sake, writers. We know you watched Alien because you copied it at the start of the series. Anyway, Chestburster launches out from the lung, straight through the lung, and then goes through the glass, escapes. Wendy starts talking to it in the alien language and ends up stroking the alien like a pet. And the Chestburster's like, strokesies. And then we get our song for the end credits, and it's Jane's Addiction, Ocean Size. It's a shame. It's a shame. This series is a real shame because there is potential here. There's potential for a good sci-fi series regarding the natures of maturity, artificial intelligence, identity, the whole human or nature versus machine aspect that is the bedrock of all truly great science fiction. The nature of man versus machine, or organic versus machine, is the entire thesis of science fiction. It really is. But they decided to put an alien show into it, and it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that nobody knows what's going on. It doesn't make sense that this alien chestburster has been able to hatch a lung when we've seen all the times previously that, I mean, hell, it doesn't make sense that Wendy is able to replicate the sound and it responds to it. There's so much about this show that just isn't working. There is something good here. And this episode in particular, I appreciated some of the characterization. I appreciated some of the intrigue that's getting built up, although a lot of the intrigue is immediately killed. Arush is obviously going to go for Joe. We were wondering last time, what's going to happen to Joe? They're going to put the lung back into him? No, they keep the lung out and they gave him an extra lung. And it just like, intrigue killed. The first scene of this episode. So I'm wondering if they're going to hang on to any of this intrigue. I don't like mystery boxes, but this isn't about mystery boxes. This is about intrigue. And they're not hanging on to it, and it's not capturing my imagination. There's too many little subplots. Like, I can understand that you want to give all the Lost Boys a little bit of, something, and Tootles changed his name to Isaac. I thought that was good. I like that. That was good. It was like, a child would be like, I'm a grown-up because I'm doing grown-up stuff, so I need a grown-up name. This is fine. Nibs thinking she's pregnant? Don't think we needed that. Don't know if it's going to key into it somehow. That is a mystery box because we don't know what's going on with the alien. Our eye alien thing, she was poking her eye and all that kind of. That is mystery box bollocks. That's not intrigue. But there is intrigue here. I'm hoping that they don't go down some ridiculous route where Wendy becomes the alien queen, like the first alien queen or something like that, and affects the alien biology process and their development. I don't want people talking to aliens. We don't need to identify with the alien. We don't need to identify the alien. The alien works best when it is more or less an animal. The animals, how do they cut the power? And we can tell that they communicate, obviously, with the alien queen, and we figure it's all through telepathy, the alien queen. That's fine. These mysteries are meant to be mysteries. I don't want the alien being humanized. I don't want the aliens having some kind of agenda other than that of an animal trying to survive and breed, which is what all animals do. Every animal on this planet has an agenda, and that is to survive and to pass on its genes to the next generation, to breed, to procreate. That is it. And I'm fine with the aliens being that. I'm fine with the xenomorphs being that. Being this hive of, like ants, like bees, and there's a queen and she directs her hive, all that kind of stuff. And I just know they're going to fuck with it. I know they are. They can't help themselves. Ridley Scott can't help himself. We never needed to know where the aliens came from. Any more than maybe they were bioengineered by the engineers to be a weapon. That's it. But no, we got all this black goo stuff and Ridley Scott and Jesus engineers and all that kind of stuff, which again, these are all fine sci-fi concepts that I'd love to see explored in a different franchise, its own franchise, but when you put it into Alien, it just muddies it. Now we know that the aliens were created by David. No, that's shit. I'm sorry. Why? Why do they need to be? Why do we have to have the most mundane version of everything? That an android got a god complex and decided to. It's also depressing. It really is. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But the writing is a little bit better in this, I think. A little bit better. There's no action. There was some good characterization in this. There was some good character development that sadly I think has come too late. But I kind of started to get a feeling for who some of these characters are. And while it's not all great, there are signs of there being something here. But I just wish it wasn't an alien show. Anyway, that's what I think. Please sound off down below. Let me know what you think regarding the show. If you like what you see, do me a favour, give it a share. I'm not getting loads of views, which is a shame, but it is a brutal environment out there. And if you do like what I have to offer, then please consider giving me a sub, because again, I would really appreciate it. I will be back with Alien Earth episode 5 next week. In the meantime, I'll try and see if I can't get something knocked up for you guys to enjoy. So until then, I've been Critical. Thanks for watching.